All right, so an Addisonian friend and I have, oops, that's pretty centered, right? We've been talking about what type of mindset it takes to succeed with Addisons. And by succeed with Addisons, I mean live a normal quality of life with Addisons. And basically, we both agreed, and it was our thought process prior to talking with each other, um, that it comes down to just having the mindset of continually trying, if we can say it that way. It's probably a better way to articulate it, but the idea is the same. Because neither of us have, well, I'll just go back to myself. So like for me, because I don't want to speak on her behalf for all these things. I don't know for sure if she would agree with all of them. But so for me, in my mind, first off, we have to embrace reality. I mean, we do have Addisons, right? We can't just say, "Oh, everything's fine. I don't have a problem." Um, you do, if you have Addisons, and if you don't, then you probably have plenty of problems as well. Just Addisons doesn't happen to be one of them. Um, and so, in that vein, both of us, I can say this on her behalf, we both think that a decent part of the problem, and also I've talked with my wife about this, is patients just, once they're given a disease name, right? Like, okay, you have this, you have this disease. So, with Addison's, hey, you have Addison's disease. Good luck. And so then the Addisonian looks at the list of, okay, what are your potential side effects of your disease? And and then they're like, okay, well, wow, it looks like my memory might go. Probably gonna get pretty fat. Uh, I'm probably gonna have morning nausea. I'm gonna feel fatigued all the time. And they just kind of take that and own it, and they accept it. They accept, all right, that is my life. um, which is sort of understandable. I mean, at least in the United States, whenever there are medication commercials, they're required to list all the side effects, or at least like the top 10 or something, and they do. And one kind of amusing thing about that is, okay, take this medication, but it may have these 20 side effects. So these people who take the medication, I mean, they are accepting that they may have the side effects. Um, and in some cases, I suppose, if they have a bad enough disease, then they're accepting the inevitability of those side effects. And I think that's what a lot of Addisonians do. They are, so like they get their Addison stuff, they get their replacement corticosteroids or cortisol, or, well, hydrocortisone, prednisone, something like that. Um, and then they're like, okay, well, now I know that I'm probably going to have these side effects. Um, that's true of, a lot of medications, but the thing with Addison's is that I mean, all we're doing with these medications is trying to dose them in a way that your body normally would have made otherwise. So there should be some sort of, quote, perfect dose that is so close to what your body normally made before that you won't really be able to notice any difference from before. Um, but the problem is, I mean, if you overdose or you underdose, then you're going to have different symptoms. Um, and a further problem is that that perfect dose. I mean, we can think of it as like an oasis in the desert. You're gonna have to stumble around, um, for months, most likely, trying to find it. And I am strongly against stepping outside of your endocrinologist guidelines. But I do think there is room for trying to modify things within those, um, within reason. I mean, don't stop taking your hydrocortisone just because some idiot making a YouTube video, I mean, potentially me, right? But there are other people who are dumber than me. I will say that and try to just keep it at that. And they will say very stupid things based on very like no, if any, evidence. Um, I'll say like, stop taking your hydrocortisone. It's making you feel horrible. Well, there's a slight amount of truth to that because you, if you take too much, then you're gonna have symptoms of Cushing's disease, Cushing syndrome, which is what happens when somebody produces excessive amounts of what you cannot produce anymore. So they produce a ton of cortisol. You didn't produce any before. Well, okay, with Addison's, you don't produce any cortisol. With Cushing's, you produce a ton. And so with these patients, I mean, they take too much cortisol, then they're going to start getting symptoms of Cushing's, a different disease. And then they're going to sit around and be feeling terrible. And then there's going to be some naturopath or something who's like, hey, and I just say this because there's one video in particular, whatever. I'm not going to specifically focus on that guy too much, but just his ilk, those people like that, who like, oh, well, I took the hydrocortisone and it made me feel bad. Never mind that I took 60 milligrams when the normal person takes 20 to 30. I'm not intelligent enough to realize that. What I know is that I took a lot of it and it didn't make me feel good. So I stopped taking it and now I just eat licorice and take some vitamin D. And here are 13 other supplements that I sell for you. And all the profit goes to me. So you should trust me. I'll end that rant there for this time. I do want to go in that more detail later on. But the point is there's a median level that is well, not perfect. I mean, very, very good, right? But then when you get farther and farther away on either side from that like average level from what you should be taking, then you have symptoms. And it's very hard to tread that line. It's very hard to move back to it because it's, in math terms, it's an unstable equilibrium, right? So, well, right, like you know what I'm talking about. I would have had no idea until a couple years ago. But so you can kind of liken it to a mountain, okay? This is your mountain. It's not, well, I'm not in Colorado, so it doesn't have to be very big. But so we call this an equilibrium point, all right? So at the very top, that's your equilibrium point. That's where everything is perfect. But let's say you take an extra 5 milligrams of hydrocortisone. You pop off the equilibrium point. You're gonna feel worse. Like you're farther away from, and the mountaintop is the highest possible level, right? The best way you can feel. So if you take something off, then you feel slightly worse. That's sort of what we're talking about here. And I think a lot of things in math terms. So welcome to my mind. Hopefully that makes sense. If it doesn't, make a comment and I don't know. I don't know. But for real, make a comment if that doesn't make sense. I hope it does. So trying to just say too much or too little hydro will cause large side effects. And that means that you, and also, okay, and then also the next fact we have to think about is hydrocortisone is very difficult to nail down. Like you have to, well, I don't know, I don't want to overemphasize the difficulty, but it is hard, let's say, because each individual is going to encounter different levels of stress throughout the day, and it will change based on your age, based on your body mass. It's just an individual thing. And so no endocrinologist that I know of is just going to say, all right, 30 milligrams, that's it. No more discussion at all. 30 milligrams, 20 in the morning, 10 at night, no discussion. If they do that, which is how, I don't know, I did encounter an endocrinologist who did that and I left them. But I think it's expressing a large amount of ignorance of the research, and they're probably shoveling you on so they can get back to all their diabetic patients because they have like 100 diabetic patients for every Addisonian, probably more, probably 1,000. So they're far more concerned about those people. Nothing against them. That's how I'd be too if I were an endocrinologist. But the point is, it's very individual. You're gonna have to figure it out. The doctor's not gonna have to figure it out. You're gonna have to figure it out with their assistance for sure. But you are the primary mover in this endeavor. So So it's going to take a lot of proactivity on your part. You can't be a passive participant. And so going back to the original comment that I said sparked this video, that's what my Estonian friend and I think is probably the biggest judge of if you're going to get back to a good quality of life or not. It's a matter of how much time input are you willing to put into it. Researching, because you should know everything about, or pretty much all the practical sides of, okay, what is hydrocortisone? What is fludrocortisone? What is aldosterone? What is cortisol? What are their functions? And how would my dosing of hydrocortisone and fludrocortisone and water and salt, what do all those mean? What should I do with all those variables or parameters, I guess, not variables? Math talk. Yeah, that's just on you. And there's not enough research as well. And also, I should throw in sleep, but there's not enough research as well just on water and salt. But they're also big deals. Big deals, yeah. And you're gonna have to think about that, and you're gonna have to track it at least to some degree for a while until you get to like some sort of range that makes you feel good. And that's not possible. So I guess actually in my mind, the deepest thing comes down to is there must be a belief that tomorrow has a possibility of being better than today. And you can't just do that in some sort of wishy-washy bullcrap way, where like, oh man, I sure hope I feel better tomorrow, but I didn't do anything different today than I did yesterday, than I did the day before that, but I sure hope I feel better tomorrow. Well, you're not gonna feel better tomorrow. You didn't do anything different. Why would you expect to feel better? If you keep all the inputs into a system the same, you're going to have the same output until the laws of physics change, which they never have, as far as I know. That's insane. And I strongly encourage you to be active in changing things slightly under your endocrinologist supervision. Those who aren't willing to sit around and tinker with everything for 6 months, a year, you're not really going to get anywhere. At least I really doubt it. So the underlying thing, before you can even do that though, you have to have hope that tomorrow can be better than today, but also you have to understand that it's predicated on your own actions. If you're not willing to take actions to try to make tomorrow better than today, it's not going to become better than tomorrow. You have to have a belief that your own actions influence tomorrow. And they do, whether or not you believe it. They do. And please keep in mind, I mean, the objective is not, okay, I'm going to take an extra 2.5 milligrams less of hydrocortisone, and then I feel perfect tomorrow. Like, no, I mean, okay, back to my little mountain analogy, right? So let's just say that you feel way down, you're like way down here on the mountain or whatever, and then you tweak, and then you're up here, and then you tweak, then you're up here. Like, that's more what it's going to be like until eventually you get closer and closer to that peak and you like don't really have any complaints, any major complaints. That's just what it takes. It's climbing a mountain, climbing your own Everest or whatever. It's hard, but it's what we have to do just as a people group from our disease. And I do want to illustrate that, like, just because I think it's probably easy for somebody looking at me, like, if I had just been diagnosed, right? This is what I try to keep in mind. Like, okay, when I was just diagnosed, what would I have liked to have seen out there? And so for me, I could see myself being like, well, this guy's probably just lucky because, he's young, he's a male, I don't know. Just somehow pinning it on my genetics and whatnot, or also thinking, this guy hasn't had any problems for some reason, he's just super lucky. Well, I've had problems. So for instance, as a quick background to myself, right? So I was in Florida, living in Florida at the time. I did my exercise science there, and yeah, so that's where I got diagnosed, and the whole process was a big problem, especially for my wife. It was really hard for her to deal with having a husband who had just had Addison's and trying to recover from that. So we decided to move back home to our support system, which our support system is in Missouri, the state of Missouri, for all you people who are outside the U.S. There's a state right in the middle. Doesn't get as much attention as New York or California, but there are a lot of us who live here. And yeah, so we moved back to Missouri. And for our support system, but also part of it was moving back because I decided to change from, is after I did the exercise science thing, I'm going to keep out most of the details, but I wanted to do physical therapy. So I was thinking about going back to school for physical therapy doctorate. Um, but in the process of doing prerequisites for that, I was introduced to biomedical engineering, and that was by one of my professors. He just showed some of the genetic engineering that people have been doing, like 3D printing human organs, like things like that. That's pretty cool. And I was like, man, I would really like to do that, actually, I think, because that sounds fun. So, but he's like, all right, I admire your desire, I guess, but you got to be able to do the math. And so for me, I was pretty good in math in high school, but I hadn't done calculus for a long, well, like ever since then. And I hadn't done any like upper level math, well, just like anything over basic algebra for 10 years. So I go back to school trying to figure out math. And also I'd just been diagnosed with Addison's. So yeah, basically I did calc and so like um, pre-calculus stuff. I did that in Florida, and then I had a really good teacher, um, Elisa Greenberg, in Florida Atlantic University. She's super good, and she basically re-taught me Calculus 1 in 2 weeks. We were both pretty highly motivated, and she's just crazy. I think she likes challenges like that. So, I mean, crazy in a good way if she ever watches this. But um, yeah, so I have Addison's, new to it, so I kind of have like Cushing's symptoms or Addison symptoms. I don't really know at that point, but I'm definitely not back to normal by any means. And so we moved back to Missouri, and I take Calculus 2 there. Never taken Calculus 2, and outside of math fields, probably don't know the significance of it, but it's generally regarded as the hardest math class you'll encounter. For engineering majors, math majors, and physics majors, you have to take 4 calculus classes. And Calculus 2, as the name insinuates, it's the second, and it's also super hard. You're first encountering integrals, but don't need to go into that right now, even though they are really cool. They're just really hard. But to put this in context, though, it's a class where honestly, at the end, only half of the class was there to take the final. Everybody else had dropped it, and I don't even know how many of those people who took the final even passed. They're still there. So that's how hard it is. And these are normal kids. It's not like I'm in a school for Addisonians, right? So I'm there, and also I had my allergies again. Part of me moving away from Missouri was because I hated my allergies. They're so frustrating. I have really strong allergies, like enough that I broke out into hives. My eyes have swelled shut before. It's just not very fun. So I moved back to Missouri though because I figured the benefit of having my support system would be better than, or would outweigh having allergies again. So I get my allergies again though. So I'm sitting there in like Calc 2, just like, wiping away snot every 15 seconds and trying to learn how to take difficult integrals. It wasn't really a recipe for success, and then also, and to add on top of that, my mind is definitely not 100% yet. It's only like 3 or 4 months after being diagnosed. So what did I do? because I think this is the crux of what my friend and I have been talking about. Because the tendency is to say, all right, this is too hard. I mean, how can I ever expect to pass when most of these kids, these people who are like highly motivated, these other students, they've already made it through Calculus 1. All of us have made it through Calculus 1, and half of us are going to fail. At least half. I think it's actually more than half. I think it's only like a third of the students actually made it through to the final. It's a very hard class. Um, so my tendency would be like, well, I probably could have done this before Addison's, but now I have Addison's, so I better just give up. I mean, it's in my little sheet here says that I won't be able to think very well and I'll have bad memory. So I better just, not even try. I've got Addison's. I need to give up. But that's not how I thought. I thought I want to be a biomedical engineer. That's what I freaking want to do. And I'm going to sit down and I'm going to pass this stupid class. And so what I did every night, literally every night, and it probably averaged around 2 hours every night, like dead serious, 2 hours reading through my notes, trying to figure out how to take these advanced integrals every night for that semester, just for that class. I had a bunch of other classes as well. That's what I did, and that's what it took. I got a high B in that class. Usually I get A's, but I got a high B in that class. I mean, I'm totally fine with that. But it wasn't because I was just lucky. It was because I studied specifically for that class, at least 14 hours a week. Um, just that one. And yeah, I just want to say, I mean, it's not like I say these things just as some lofty idea where I've had no obstacles by any means. I've had obstacles. I'm just pretty headstrong, and so I'm like, well, I'm gonna figure this out. I mean, if somebody can do this with just an hour or something, then surely I can do it in 2 hours. And yeah, and then also another, I do want to bring up another thing, like, because I realized I didn't like mention any major Addisonian symptoms, but I did have one day in particular. I had a lot of other times where it was like less of a degree, but in one lecture in particular, I was sitting there in physics, and then my vision starts to blur. I'm like, oh, wow, I can't read the I can't read the whiteboard anymore. This is bad. And I start getting a headache, and then I realize I can't read what I'm writing anymore. So I'm just kind of blindly trying to write um, and just listen really hard for what this guy's saying so I can copy it down and just use my senses, right? Like, because I can't even read what I'm writing. And it looked like a 2-year-old's writing in the end once I could read it again. But I mean, I had plenty of times like that where, not to that same severity, but sort of like that, where I'm just sitting there with the headache and my senses are like kind of shutting down. Um, and, and, and life just sucks at that point. There's no denying that. I'm not going to sit here and deny the reality that a lot of times life with Addison sucks. But also the reality is it's not going to get better unless you personally make it better. You have to be willing to put that time into it. And if you aren't, then things will not get better. If you're willing to accept whatever quality of life you have, then don't try any harder. If you're not willing to accept the quality of life you currently have, like if you have trouble keeping up with your kids, or losing weight, or your memory's bad, you're gonna have to take proactive steps. And it's not like things aren't gonna be better tomorrow, but well, I mean, marginally better, right? But as you keep on doing that, you will feel better. You will be able to get back something that's very close to a normal quality of life. Um, so that's the whole point of this thing, really. And and all the other information you can amass about Addison's, about endocrinology, blah blah blah. It doesn't matter at all unless you have the mindset of, okay, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to study this and I'm going to try something that makes sense under my endocrinologist supervision, and I'm going to try to feel better every day. Like, even if it takes me 5 years to figure this out, I'm going to do it because it's worth it, right? You have another, well, I don't know how old you are. Like, for me, I'm 27, right? So I'm probably have like another 60-ish years of life. So I'm totally willing. I see it as a good time investment now to work really hard for the next 2 5 years to figure out how to dose these things so I feel back close to normal. And then, hey, I can live vast majority of my life. I was trying to figure out the percentage, but at least like 90% of my life fairly healthy. So yeah, that's the whole point of this. Just the encouragement to keep on trying, even though it is really hard, and I'm not trying to discount that at all. And also, I apologize for the latency on me adding stuff on my website. It will be awesome at some point in the coming years. I really need to be better at that, and I do apologize, especially if you have gotten a lot of information there. But yeah, so I'm going to work harder on that. I do have quite a few other things going on, but it is important. You guys are important. I mean, I definitely want to see us as a community, with almost all of us living really well. I don't know why I said almost all of us. Let's say all, even though it is a superlative statement. But yeah, I mean, I think it's possible. We just got to keep trying. So yeah, that's the whole point. Just keep trying. And hopefully, I mean, if you keep on trying, like, reach out to other people and try to support them. And I don't know, if you need support of your own, like, you can contact me. I'm always open to that. I do really like talking with Addisonians. Yeah. Anyway, hope life's treating you pretty well. Sorry this is so freaking long. Yeah, don't give up, because there is hope for a better tomorrow. All right? Keep on getting slightly better each day. All right, I'm out.